here we go.
Titans.
Titans, yeah. Titanic. We know what happened to the Titanic, don't we? Of course, Clive and I, we worked together. And in fact, one of the most bizarre phone calls I've ever had, Clive, was out running on Hampstead Heath. My phone went. I had my phone with me running, 2004, 5, just in the middle, running up to the election campaign. And I answered the phone. It says, I'd never met Clive before. And he said, it's Clive Woodward. I got your number off so-and-so. Do you fancy coming to New Zealand with the British and Irish Lions? I said, Clive, I haven't played since I was 17. But anyway, so was that your worst mistake ever?
It's right up there, Alastair, I have to say that. No, the whole background to that was we'd announced the Lions squad, including the media side, and a whole deputation from the British media came to see me, having a right go, saying that we were understaffed on the media side, and if the Lions are going to go well in New Zealand, we need a real heavy hitter on the media panel. So I said, I just want a World Cup. I don't need a heavy-hitting media. We'll be fine. So I went back to my wife and I said to Jane, had this conversation about these press guys. I said, who's the biggest heavy-hitting media guy? And she goes, well, probably Alastair Campbell. And I honestly had never heard of Alastair Campbell. So,
well, you've been living on Mars.
Who's he? I said, well, I did have heard of him, but I didn't know but he's. So I said, okay. So that's where I made the phone call. Yeah. And it was and I managed to persuade you to do it. It was a great meeting. It brought all the media guys back in. I said, okay, you want a heavy-hitting guy, Alastair Campbell? And they all said, we didn't mean that heavy-hitting a guy. So
but what it was interesting, what it said to me, and the reason in the end I said yes, and I did enjoy it, even though the tour didn't go very well. You got a lot of the blame. I think I got even more, even though I didn't play because he didn't pick me. But what it said to me is you are always somebody who's kind of trying to think a little bit differently and trying to do things a little bit differently. And actually you've shown that, not just in the stuff you did to win the World Cup with England, but also the stuff you've done in your own life since you've stopped being a rugby coach. So have you always been somebody who's kind of looking to do things differently and looking for new things to do?
Honestly, no. In terms of, I just think in terms of leadership, and I think that's what we're here to sort of discuss with everyone today. In terms of leadership, what I think I've always been quite good at is listening to other people. I think it's a key skill in any leader. I almost pride myself on not being good at new ideas. But what I think I am quite good at is really making sure if you're going to be part of my team, that I really want you to be part of the team. I want everybody to engage, and I want everybody feeling really free to put their thoughts and ideas forward. And you know, if I come across anything that I think is going to make a difference to the team, what I think I am quite good at is making it happen and bringing it into place. But you know, I know I'm not good at new ideas or new thoughts, but I'm good at getting the team to really kind of.
You say that, but you've got an innovative mind.
Not especially. No, I think I don't think I've got an innovative mind at all. What I think I'm good at is you get real top people in your team, and you really encourage them to always push the boat out. We've always got to be thinking in terms of new opportunities. And I'm just actually that's a great idea. Or that's a great idea. And then I say making it happen is what I think I'm quite good at getting it through.
Okay. And when you're building a team, and what can you learn from other sectors? What have you learnt as you've gone through your life? Because you were in business. Yeah. And you have to build teams in business, and you've done all sorts of different things. What have you learnt about how you build teams? And is there anything you can apply from sport that you can say actually to somebody in the education sector they could learn from that, or anything you could learn from them?
Yeah, I have this. Just as a bit, I'm actually a qualified teacher.
Yeah.
I did my degree at Loughborough University. Did a year Cert Ed, so I qualified as a teacher, but then I was involved in playing rugby, so I never actually went into the education side. But you know, that's why I think I was able to sort of do okay as a coach, because of my whole background in teaching. I mean, coaching is teaching. It's a very obvious thing, but if you're going to be a good coach, you've got to get the teaching skills. But I think in terms of the actual skill base, you know, I've this saying. I think learning is absolutely key. I have this saying called relentless learning, and relentless learning is, to me, comes in kind of three key areas. One, the relentless learning has got to come from you, the person leading the team. So if you're a headmaster, headmistress of a school, you've got to lead on that, and so you're always learning. There's got to be this real undercurrent to your own DNA that you've always got to be learning about things. And that can come from yourself, and I use the word, either you're a sponge or a rock. And I need everybody in my team, especially me, to always be a sponge. In other words, you kind of pour us for new ideas, new thoughts coming in. You know, if you become this rock type person, in other words, you kind of stop learning, you stop trying things, then the chance of you being successful are very limited. So that's got to become you as the leader. Secondly, it's then your team. So you build your team of people around you, and you've got to really encourage them. You know, one of my favorite sayings in the sporting world, there's no such thing as a dumb idea. You know, where we'd really fall out, I'd really fall out with somebody if they felt they'd sit there, whether it be a player or a coach, if they thought they had an idea and they didn't feel confident to kind of, you know, really stand up and say it, that would cause me a lot of problems because, you know, sometimes these ideas can come from all sorts of places. So you've got to get this learning from the team. And the third thing that I was really, that I did, I think, quite well was to bring people from outside my world into my world. So in other words, if I can give you an example, I used to invite people like yourselves, people who are successful in your world, you know, headmistresses, headmasters, top hedge fund managers, top bankers, top boss of Sainsbury's. And I used to invite them in, if I use the rugby camp, I used to invite them into my world. I mean, I used to, you know, these were fans of rugby, but I knew they were successful. And they used to come in, and here was the deal, basically. You can come and spend 24 hours, 48 hours with me. We're going to show you everything. We're going to be totally transparent. We're going to show everything we do. So come and spend 24 hours, 48 hours with me. Sit in the back of the room. You know, don't go gaga when Johnny Wilkinson walks in the room. But we're going to show you everything. But here's the deal. But after a day or 2 days with me, I want at least one thought or one idea of something we could do better. I promise you, over the 8 years of coaching England, I'd have brought in over 50 plus people, all from completely different business and sporting and different backgrounds. Without exception, everybody left and gave me a bit of paper saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Used to drive me nuts when some flipping hedge fund manager, you know, hadn't played rugby since his kind of prep school under nines. We'd come up with an idea we'd not thought about, you know, and we were this so-called high-performing teams. You get this guy who hadn't played rugby forever, you know, for all his life almost, but he'd come up with an idea we'd not thought about. And then, of course,
you told me a story once about you going the other way when you went to the military, and you went through a whole kind of load of stuff with them.
Yeah.
The Marines.
Yeah.
And they gave you some very, very blunt.
Yeah, the Marines were good. It's exactly that. It's the same thing. I took the England team down to the Royal Marines. This was when I first took over. I'm from a military background. My dad was in the Royal Air Force, so I kind of liked the armed forces and all that sort of stuff. So we took the team down to the Royal Marines. I'd been in a job just a few months. They were brilliant. It was headed up by a guy called Brigadier Pillar. They put a huge budget behind this, so we were doing all these amazing things in helicopters and landing craft, and you know. But the whole idea was to really sort of do the team building and all this sort of stuff. And we had 4 days down there, and after literally 2 days, the Brigadier Pillar came up to me and said, "Can we go out for a beer tonight?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I thought it was a nice thing to do. So I went out with Brigadier Pillar, and he sat me down. We had a quiet chat for 5 minutes, and he just put out this list of players. There was about 8 players. We had about 40 players there. And he brought me out this list, and he showed me this list of 8 players, and he showed me this list, and he said, those 8 players wouldn't make Royal Marines. And I looked at him, and I've obviously never disclosed who was on that list. So I said, what do you mean?
But they never played again?
Sorry?
Did they ever play
no,
again?
No, after the next World Cup they didn't. But he basically said, I didn't tell you this, but you know, since the moment everyone arrived, all my team, all the guys involved, you've been behind the scenes, listening, watching, knowing what's going on. And this list was a real spooky list, because if I was asked to name 8 players you think were a bit kind of lightweight, the list was totally accurate. So they within 24, 48 hours are completely worked it out. So when you think of their world, you know, and I think we're all hugely proud of all our armed forces, but especially these guys, because they absolutely believe they're the best in the world. They kind of self-select, and they make it clear, you know, you wouldn't get on the helicopter with their team unless they trusted everybody on the helicopter. Because they make it very, very clear. You know, one person can't handle the pressure, the whole team gets wiped out. And he said, you've got to have the same mentality. And I kind of really moved quickly into that, because I started to really start to understand this is a kind of, you know, we're playing for keeps here, and I've got to make these tough calls. And it was a big learning. But what I'm saying on the leadership style, you can, from yourself being a sponge, you get every other people, and do not underestimate where you can get other ideas from. And just listening here to the other talkers and speakers in the room, and listening earlier on, I mean, just in the audience here, you've got amazing schools, but if those schools heads could all collaborate, you know, and I mean really collaborate, not just have an annual meeting, but through technology, what's going well, what's not going well, all the good advice. That's amazing where things can come from, even within your own group of people, just by really collaborating properly. And with technology now, there's no excuse not to.
You mentioned Johnny Wilkinson there, and I think the other thing that's interesting in your world, my world, this world, is how you deal with special talent in a world when, so for example, you know, a head teacher might have a teacher who that head teacher knows that teacher is better than the others. In politics, you might have somebody who, you know, Tony Blair dealing with Gordon Brown, it was like it's special talent. You dealing with Johnny Wilkinson, who didn't behave like special talent because he's such an amazing guy. But actually, how do you kind of not impose a hierarchy, but how do you deal with the fact that there is a hierarchy because there's a hierarchy of talent?
A really, really good question. I mean, the first thing, and I've done this in business and sport, I'll always ask to hire the most talented person. I want the most gifted. I don't care what their background is, if they've come with a bit of baggage. I want the most talented person. I'm confident with the way I would manage that person, that I'd get the best out of them. But when you've got this person, and there's various names of these people, you know, from mavericks, and I'm often asked in every world, you know, how do you deal with the superstar business person? How do you deal with the superstar if they're a bit awkward? And I said, well, what I find is the opposite. Meaning, the first thing I do with these people is, you know, I have a very simple saying that great teams made of great individuals. I repeat it, great teams made of great individuals. You know, I'll never ever underscore the importance of teamwork and all this sort of stuff, but I think sometimes it's overplayed. What I think the secret to teamwork is, if you get every individual in your team, I mean every individual, from the player to the coaches, the sports scientists, you get every individual in your team working at the optimal level, the team stuff becomes a lot easier to do. So I see my role as the leader to make sure I am doing everything possible to improve you as an individual, which doesn't mean dumbing down, doing all this team stuff. I'm going to make you, Johnny Wilkinson, in this example, a better player, which is really challenging because he's already, you know, really talented. And that's the challenge of leadership. What am I going to do to make you a better player? And what I've found, and I saw it especially in football, in my short time in football, that sometimes the opposite happens. Some of the leaders, the head coaches, they almost become a bit intimidated by these superstar players, and they kind of leave them out there. That's the big mistake. You leave them out there under their own devices, they can cause all sorts of problems. So the thing is to get them really, really close. I'm going to make you a better player. I'm going to make Johnny Wilkinson a better player. I like to think we did, you know, and we brought in some amazing people to work with Wilkinson. And he was so, what's the word?
Dedicated.
So dedicated, but also so respectful of what we were doing. So when you want stuff back in return, you get it back in bucket loads. And I've always found if you kind of open the batting, you trying to help people. When you need it back, in other words, you need them to really work in a team, they will do it. So the more talented they are, the more you get them close to you, the more you get them totally involved in the whole meetings. But the more you say, I'm going to make you a better player. You know, in football, can you make Messi a better player? Can you make Beckham a better player? The answer is yes. Can you make this head teacher better at their job? Yes, but you've got to invest in them. And I found if you do, you'll get back in bucket loads. They won't, you know, if you think of people who have really helped you, you never forget those people, and you have no problems. Because when you leave them out there, they can cause real problems to you, and they'll
you mentioned football, so you were one of the few who's gone from rugby and then you went to football. And I mean, is it fair to say the sport was very suspicious of you?
I loved it. I had a great year at Southampton. I was about to become a manager. I wasn't the head coach at Southampton. Obviously, I was behind the scenes as performance director, but I was just learning my trade for this thing. I'm a fully qualified football coach. It's strange I've not got a single qualification to coach rugby, but I'm a fully qualified. That's true. I've never done a single badge. I pride myself on being a trained teacher, so I think I can teach and coach. And as I said before, coaching's teaching, but I'm a fully qualified football coach. Did all my badges and all that sort of stuff. And I found football was fantastic. I loved it, and I really. And then I was going to take these 2 jobs. I was offered 2 jobs. I was going to go right down. These were literally 2 teams at the bottom of the 4th division. But their kind of owners had said, we'll give you a chance. You can come in as the boss. And I was about to do it. And then I was going to choose one of them. And then we won the Olympic bid. And Colin Moynihan came to me, Lord Moynihan came to me and said, look, we've just won the bid, we're creating this new job, Director of Sport, and we'd like you to do it. And I had one of these really funny conversations with my wife because I was dead hell-bent on doing the football. And I'm literally sitting at home, with head in my hands, and there's a sort of contract from this club. It was High Wycombe, which is my local team. And there's a contract from this club, MK Dons. Pete Winkleman, the chairman, was going to give me a chance there.
As manager?
I'd come in as the main guy, as the boss. And then I got a contract from the BOA, 3 Olympic Games, 6-year contracts, finishing in London 2012. And Jane walked past and said, what's up? I was like, blah, blah, blah. She looked at me and she said, are we really having this conversation? So that was the end of my football career with those two sides. So it was one of those things because I loved it, and there's nothing I saw in football apart from opportunity. And what I found is, Southampton was amazing.
I'm not sure she was right,
Sorry?
Listen, the Olympics. I'm not saying you didn't do a great job at the Olympics, but
Thank you.
I think we could have found other people to do that.
Yeah, no.
I'd have done it.
Alastair, I'm a bit on your side because in football at Southampton, when I was there, that year I was there, Gareth Bale was there, Theo Walcott was there, Nathan Dyer was there, McGoldrick, and these amazing kids, amazing players. Gareth Bale was 15. So I got to know these guys in the academy team. And what I found in football was very, very straightforward. There was no difference. There was no different from the players. Were absolutely like I was used to in rugby. There's just nonsense written about, rugby's a different game than football. The players were brilliant. They're all sponges. They all want to be better. It was the kind of the coaching world that was a bit different. There wasn't signs like this. The rugby coaching world is, a lot of really talented people coaching these rugby teams who I was up against. And I just found the football world a little bit sort of conservative, that's the right word. They was definitely terrified of the media, which I couldn't work out, because you shouldn't go into these jobs if you're terrified of the media, don't do it. And they were almost sort of intimidated by doing new things. I think it's changed now. I think football now with, Klopp and all these guys coming in, but they're not English, they're not Brits.
But how old are you now?
I'm not telling you that question.
Well, you can still do it.
I could definitely still do it, yeah, but I'm busy doing... One of the things I'm doing, which is interesting with this audience, we're building a ski academy in the south of France, which is a 50 million euro build, but it's a full-time ski academy, so in other words, there's education there. Yeah. And I think, we're working with the...
Is that academy like on the Rugby Football Academy?
Just like, think of Chelsea Football Academy, the Barcelona Football Academy, it's a ski academy.
These are really
These are great skiers, but they're from 11 through to 18. Right. But it's a full-time education, so we're dealing with the education side of things. But also what I like about it, it's international, so we're not just dealing with the kind of the Brits, we're dealing with national government bodies from all around the world. But at the heart of it, the biggest thing that's getting the kids there is education. He doesn't need me to tell this audience, hopefully, the British education system is held in such huge esteem around the world. So when you go out there, and then one of the big ticks, if they can get these incredibly talented, if you've got a gifted skier who's 11, that they want to send them there, but the big thing, they want it to go through a British education system. And so that's been a real, it's not eye-opener, because I knew that, but we're linking in with some great schools in the UK, and we're using the IB curriculum, so we're working at the top level there. But it's just fascinating to see the whole thing we're actually doing, but it's all education-based.
And the other thing I want to talk about is pressure and how you deal with pressure. Whether you think pressure is a good thing, what's the difference between pressure and stress? How can you use pressure to maximise performance?
Yeah, I think pressure is a great thing. I think the pressure kind of sets people apart from the people who, if you can handle pressure, I think it's a key strength. But I don't think anybody is born to play or perform under pressure. I think it's something you can teach people, you can teach yourself. And I use a very, very strange word. It's called teacup. Teacup is how I coach pressure. And teacup stands for thinking correctly under pressure. And the key word is correctly. And all this pressure stuff, in the way I handle it, it's just my own personal thing, is if you come across anything that you've not experienced before, but most importantly, you've not thought through, what would I do in that situation? I think it must be loads of situations in the education and school world. If you've not thought about it before and it happens in the real world, the chance of thinking correctly under pressure are really small. All these horrendous words kick in. Choke, freeze, bottle, rabbits and headlights. That's what happens. Conversely, if you come across this thing called pressure, whatever it is, if you've experienced it before, but just as importantly, if you've kind of thought through or discussed it, especially with the colleagues, this is what we would do, If it then happens in the real world, which everyone in this room definitely works in, there's a very high chance you will think correct under pressure and make the right decision. So quite simply, all these pressure things is kind of predict the kind of future events that can actually happen.
And visualize them.
Or visualize them, document them, share them. Again, about collaborating with your, every time you've created a pressure situation, it'd be great if as a head teacher, you then just collaborate with all the other head teachers. This happened today, this is how we handle it. We didn't do it very well, these are the key lessons. But then you share. And the key thing is sharing about this stuff. And so you'll never ever cover every base, but the more you cover, the more confident you get. And you mentioned the Marines before. I mean, they're the ultimate people in handling pressure. I mean, the average age of a Royal Marine officer is 21, 22. So they, conversely, they can't possibly experience everything they actually come across. But what they're unbelievably good at is actually going through scenario after scenario after scenario after scenario. So when it happens in the real world, even if it's not quite like they've discussed it, they're good at handling pressure. And this is all done in the classroom. They sit in classrooms for hour after hour after hour. And this is what I learned to do as a rugby team. We went through scenario after scenario after scenario. And what it just creates a great trust within your team of people about how it can happen.
Do you think you can learn resilience?
Well, how do you define resilience? What do you mean by resilience?
I think resilience to me is the ability to withstand setback and pressure over time.
Yeah.
Is that something you can develop, or is that something you have?
No, I think it's something, I believe you can coach everything. I don't think anyone's born with resilience. I think it's something you teach people, you coach people, using the same kind of method in terms of how you actually go about doing this thing. It's just a case of always, it's education, it's relentless learning about what this is, how do we actually handle this whole thing called resilience. And again, part of the Ski Academy, we've created if you see there's 3 pillars to our academy. There's education, which everyone will get in this room, which is your normal subjects, your IB subjects. Then there's a coaching of the sport, and that's what I absolutely mean, just the pure out-and-out physical coaching of skiing.
Is the education multilingual? Is it multilingual, or is it?
It's done in English, but
Right.
we've got 2 French kids at St Edward's, Oxford now. They started this term, they were speaking no English at all. Very quickly, they picked the whole up. So the whole curriculum's in English, but we're obviously bringing, and Anne will be in France, obviously, so every kid will be speaking English and French as we develop this. So you've got education, you've got the coaching of the subject, and then we've created this thing called our preparation program. And the preparation program has got 8 modules to it. And it's things like you were just talking about then. It's things like the obvious ones are, strength conditioning, nutrition. The less obvious ones are mental health, digital wellness, sleep. There's 8 modules, and I've got 8 of the best experts in the world, all creating the program for these young kids. So we think there's all this knowledge out there, but we think we're the only sort of education establishment, ski that's bringing them all 8 together and actually delivering them to these kids. And we're documenting all this. The IB, which everyone in the room will understand, is really interested in, because what I've kind of worked out very quickly, this thing here has nothing to do with skiing. In an ideal world, every kid in the world would get educated in this area here. But if you have got talented kids in sports or music or drama or anything, it's the same thing. There's your education, there's your coaching or your expertise in that subject. This stuff underpins it. And the preparation, if it's done well, will make you better in the classroom and better in whatever your chosen subject is. So I think when you talk about resilience, that preparation program alone will start to create great understanding of what's out there and create resilience in young people.
But you mentioned the Chelsea model, and now most of the top clubs have got these huge academies with loads of kids coming through them, and the vast majority being raised as children who think they're very good at football, think they're going to be footballers. The vast majority will not. They're actually going to fail.
Yeah.
How do you build that into the kind of educational experience for a kid that's coming through that, where the teacher, the role of an academy like Chelsea is to produce really good footballers, right? But the vast bulk are not going to make it.
Yeah. I think, again, it's a pressure situation. It's the opposite of what you think. You should talk to kids about failure. What happens if you don't make it? So they're prepared for it. In the rugby team, I still think I'm the only coach ever to sit down with a team and talk about losing. Losing in a rugby at the top level, if it's World Cup, the pressure is huge. So we should talk about losing. How are we going to handle this if we lose? And I've done talks with coaches, and they go, you can't possibly talk about losing. That's such a, you can't, sport's not about losing. Well, see, it is about losing, because you are going to lose. So the key thing is to talk about it and understand how we're going to behave, what are we going to do when we lose. And when you get all this stuff out on the table, then it becomes quite scary, because you actually, everyone says, actually, we don't want to lose.
And then you work out what to do not to lose.
Then exactly, so you reverse it. So with these kids now, I'm sorry to keep on about the ski academy, but this thing opens next year. It's a huge €50 million build, but we've got 15 kids on the program now. So these 8 areas are not, we're talking to kids now about it. And we're talking we're talking about getting injured. In sport, you get injured. It's not just losing, but you're one bad fall from you'll never ski again. So how are you going to handle this? But you start to think about it. So then if it does happen, you will handle it a lot better. Where people, I think, really fall in a hole, if stuff happens, they've never thought about it. And we used to talk about losing, and it used to go, we don't want to lose, but when we did lose, if we did, you know how to handle it. Because life goes on. You hope life goes on. But, every day there's talk in the papers with kids of, mental wellness, obesity, every day. I just don't see enough being done. No one's doing anything about it in a coordinated way.
I see what's interesting, though, because I interviewed you for the book. I wrote a book about winning, and you were one of my many interviewees. And I asked everybody I interviewed, I asked them this question: what motivates you more, fear of losing or a love of winning? And actually the majority, it was fear of losing. But I interviewed Floyd Mayweather, and when I asked him that question, he said, I never ever think of losing. Why would you do that? Now, I think he meant it, and of course he's never lost. But I just,
good example.
Do you think that's impossible in sport, in competitive sport?
I just try to remember that quote is, I never lose.
He said, I never...
Yeah, hang on, let me finish. I'm backing up what
somebody
you're
else?
saying. No, me.
Oh, you, right, okay, yeah, sorry.
I never lose. I either win or I learn. And that's my whole thing about it, and that's what I'm saying. So I never lose, and that's what we're saying to the kids. I either win or I learn. And enter back to learning, relentless learning. Yeah. And you can learn from winning, be very, very clear. Just because you win doesn't mean, and I think it's, when you win, that's the time to really learn. Why do we win? What happened? What were the key points? But also you're learning all the time. And, I just have this headline, relentless learning underpins everything I'm involved in now in terms of sport and business, and that's what it's all about. Okay,
right, I've just had a big thing up there. It says keep to time, and it says they've got 7 minutes, 28 seconds left. So we want to do a few questions. I've got to say, Clive, this is the longest I've gone since June the 23rd, 2016, without mentioning Brexit. So...
That's got to be the first question. I think I'll ask you the Brexit.
Right, who would like to ask a question? Shout them out. Yes, madam. Just shout out. We've got a mic, but we've got 7 minutes.
Hi. I'm quite loud usually, so I just have to... Anyway, my question is, how do you make the connection between your heart and your head? So one of them says to you, you're amazing, you can do this, and the other one says, oh, are you sure? So how have you got over that? How have you got over that in regards to that thinking?
You.
Can we make sure Clive answers it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Heart, again, in the real world, it's both. I think there's nothing wrong with having, big goals. Your heart leads on this. But there's also, you've got to be realistic, especially if you're teaching or coaching somebody. You want to set those goals to be really realistic and also make them really short-term goals. In other words, you can have this big dream about being whatever you want to be, but let's just bring this down. What are we doing today? What are we doing tomorrow? And bring it down to real realistic things that we can actually measure and coach and become part of. So I love the heart, and I've been there and had big sort of wishes to do stuff that I've made and also stuff that I haven't made. So it's success and failure. But the head is always, okay, to me, bang, what do we actually do now to do this? And I have a thing which I just touched on, which is the head. I have a thing called 4D learning, which I guess no one's ever heard of because it's kind of, I just use it myself. And 4D learning I've always lose because whatever subject you've got, the 4D learning is one is discover, and discover is you're going to plow as much information and knowledge into this about what this is all about, and you never stop learning and putting this into discover. Once you've got discover, the second D is distill. What are the key points out of this? Out of all this stuff we're learning, what are the absolute key points in terms of what we're actually trying to do here? The third D is do, which is how we're going to do this. And that's basically, we've got these key points, how are we going to do them better than anybody else? And this is all the head, what do we do today? And then the fourth is digital, through technology now, can we share this with other people? Because I'm massive on sharing. And this is what we're actually doing, discover, distill, do. Is there ways we can actually do this any better so you get things coming in? So I think head's fantastic, but I'm both. But I'm very realistic. I want to improving all the time.
Okay. Yes, sir.
When you're talking about the kind of exploring the possibilities that you're talking about that, I understand with the sports people like that might work, but with young children, how would you ensure that doesn't kind of lead to down into self-doubt?
Again, I've got 3 kids who are all kind of grown up doing things around the world, and so I can see it from a parent's point of view and a teaching point of view. I just think you've got to get out on the table. We can theorize and all this sort of stuff. We just want to get it all out there, and for good or bad, it's the back to the pressure stuff in many ways. That sometimes you're telling them stuff they don't actually may not want to know, and you have discussions about it. But I don't think that creates great self-doubt. All I think is a real bunch of realism about what's achievable, but also. Don't undercook it either. Try and set the goals really, really high. And if you've got a kid who's got some ambitions in some area, really trying to support that and get them there. But just make it realistic and but also make it just quite short term in terms of what we just discussed then.
Yes, sir. Down the front.
I'm interested in that, the 8 that you talked about that the Royal Marines said wouldn't cut it. So in a business, when you're hiring, when you're selecting for a team, you deselect. You don't get into this organisation, you don't join a team. So actually, in a sense, you kind of need them to go somewhere else. But if you're in, say, a school environment, you've got to deal with it because you have a duty of care to them. That's part of the job you're doing. So you can't, in a sense, ignore them to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So what do you think would really work with those 8 if you had to keep working with them? What makes a difference with those that don't quite get it, who don't easily get that?
Yeah, the words I use are my coaching words, and if you speak to anybody who's worked with me, they'll know these. You're either a sponge or you're a rock, right? As simple as that. And I need everybody in my team to be a sponge.
Didn't you used to be drains and radiators?
No, then that's nothing to do with me. Sponges and
You sure?
somebody else you spoke to about your book. So.
No, I've heard you say drains and radiators.
No, I've never heard. Energizers, energy sappers.
Sappers, yeah, I've heard that one.
Yeah, that's it. But the sponge and rocks. So the key thing is to get everyone to be a sponge. Now, there's always people drift. And you as a leader may drift into being this rock-type person. But you can change people, and you've got to absolutely believe you can change people. So even in an environment where you... And be very clear, in a sporting environment, you just can't fire people, just get rid. It doesn't actually happen as easy as that. You are stuck with it. And you've got to get them back to being sponges. And the key thing is just by the power of your discussion with them, one-to-one, we need you to be the sponge. We need you participating in this team for the following reasons. And I will listen. You'll be part of this actual team. So those 8 people, if you absolutely can't get rid of them, or you can't change them back to being a sponge. And to be fair, the Royal Marine Brigadier Pillar said to me at the time, today they wouldn't make a Royal Marines. Now, can we change them? Can we make them so they would be a Royal Marine? And it's just a great analogy. And to me, it's, can we get them from being rocks into sponges and really contributing and part of the actual team?
Have you ever had a successful rock?
Yeah, because you can change people, yeah. I don't think anybody comes to work or come into a sports team going, right, I'm going to be a rock today. I'm going to absolutely underpin, cause havoc, and all this sort of stuff. You kind of just drift into being it. You just kind of drift into being it. And normally, what happens with weak leadership, you let people get away with stuff. And I think strong leadership is just sitting down one-on-one and getting it right out on the table.
Do you think Theresa May should have just batted Boris Johnson in the mouth a while back? I think that would have helped.
I'm not going to get on the politics side of this.
56 seconds to go. Who can get a question in 56 seconds? Quick, anybody? No.
Yeah, here we go, lady.
Okay, quickly. She's next to the troublemaker.
No, we're a team, you see.
Okay.
We work together. Can I just ask you about the value of marginal gains?
Yeah, marginal gains is, I don't use that term. That's a Dave Brailsford term. I use the term doing 100 things 1% better. He didn't want to use that, so he ended up with this term marginal gains, so he just nicked it. So, now Brailsford's a good friend of mine. But no, 100 things 1% better. And it's just very straightforward. I don't think you're going to become a champion school or whatever you do, a champion sports team, by coming up with any one big idea. Where I think you can become unbelievably successful is understanding it is all the small things. So everything you do, and I use that 4D learning, we're always trying to improve. It's all the 1%ers. So you just, and they all start to add up eventually. And when you get the whole team thinking this way, how can we improve? If you're the leader and you've got the kind of the passion to deliver this and get all these put in place, they just do add up. One day you'll look back and go, wow, look what we're doing now. So I just believe in detail. I think detail is absolutely key. All the 1%ers do add up. So 100 things 1%er is absolutely my kind of DNA what actually happens, and that's what I think it's all about. It's just a passion for detail. The moment you lose that passion for detail or improving whatever you're covering, at best you're going to come second and maybe worse. So that's what marginal gains is.
Good. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for the answers. Clive Woodward.
Thank you very much.
Well done.